Have you ever considered that some of history's greatest mysteries lie in plain sight, overlooked yet immensely powerful in their impact? Today, we will delve into one such profound narrative, the story of Keturah, Abraham's lesser-known wife. While the stories of Sarah and Hagar are often celebrated, Keturah's legacy, both spiritual and historical, is a treasure waiting to be uncovered. Her influence reaches beyond her 6 sons, shaping the Middle East's cultures, economies, and geopolitics for millennia. What makes Keturah's story so compelling? It is her pivotal role in fulfilling divine promises, extending Abraham's lineage to establish nations and trade routes that echo into modern times. Stay with us as we explore this fascinating tale, unravel the hidden truths of Keturah's descendants, and understand the timeless lessons it holds for us today. As we dive deep into this ancient story, ask yourself, what might her legacy mean for you personally? Could her narrative be a key to understanding the broader divine plan and your place in it? By the end of this journey, you'll not only see Keturah in a new light but also feel inspired to consider how divine purposes unfold in unexpected ways, often through individuals overlooked by history. Let's embark on this exploration together, unlocking insights that span history, spirituality, and contemporary relevance. Prepare to see the story of Abraham and the legacy of Keturah as you've never seen it before. Now, let's begin. Abraham, after mourning Sarah, found himself at a crossroads. As the patriarch of a divine promise, his story was far from over. Despite the heartache of losing Sarah, he demonstrated extraordinary resilience, a trait that becomes a recurring theme in his narrative. In the twilight of his life, Abraham made a decision that would extend his legacy further than most could imagine. Enter Keturah, a woman whose role would prove pivotal in shaping the history and spiritual lineage of the Abrahamic faith. Abraham's decision to marry Keturah reveals profound truths about divine purpose. At an age where most would consider their mission complete, he remained open to God's guidance. The narrative reflects a powerful lesson: even in moments of loss and change, there are new beginnings waiting to unfold. For Abraham, this marriage was not just a personal choice but a divine directive to continue fulfilling the covenant. Keturah's introduction into the biblical text is both simple and profound. Genesis 25 verse 1 states, "Abraham took another wife, whose name was Keturah." This brevity doesn't diminish her importance but highlights how her story fits seamlessly into the broader tapestry of Abraham's journey. The timing of their union demonstrates God's ability to work beyond human limitations, bringing forth 6 sons through Abraham's advanced age. These 6 sons, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua, represent more than familial connections. They embody the expansion of the Abrahamic promise. Each would go on to establish nations, shaping trade routes, cultural exchanges, and geopolitical landscapes. While Isaac held the spiritual covenant, Keturah's sons carried the promise of being a father of many nations into new territories. Abraham's marriage to Keturah also challenges conventional perspectives on legacy and purpose. It teaches us that life's mission doesn't conclude with one chapter but often leads to unexpected opportunities for growth and impact. This part of the narrative reminds us to remain open to possibilities, even when circumstances seem to suggest otherwise. Keturah's role highlights how God often operates beyond societal norms. In a world where lineage and inheritance were closely guarded, her presence expanded the narrative of inclusion and diversity within the divine plan. Her descendants were strategically placed, spreading influence across regions that would become central to history's unfolding drama. This chapter of Abraham's life is not only a testament to faith and obedience but also a powerful reminder of resilience. In his grief over Sarah, Abraham could have chosen to retreat into despair. Instead, he leaned into God's promises, allowing his legacy to flourish in ways that continue to shape the world today. Keturah's introduction in Genesis 25 verse 1 is brief, yet her role is pivotal. She emerges as a key figure in Abraham's later life, a period often overlooked but filled with divine purpose. While many biblical characters receive extensive attention, Keturah's story is encapsulated in a few verses. However, these verses hold immense significance, illustrating how God uses seemingly minor characters to fulfill grand plans. The name Keturah carries profound meaning, derived from the Hebrew root for incense or aromatic fragrance. This symbolism ties her to themes of worship, purity, and divine purpose. Some scholars suggest this could indicate her connection to the ancient spice trade or her spiritual role in extending Abraham's legacy. Regardless of the interpretation, her name emphasizes her vital position in God's plan. Keturah's story challenges conventional notions of inheritance and lineage. While Isaac was the promised heir, her 6 sons were not excluded from God's blessings. They became patriarchs of nations, fulfilling the broader promise made to Abraham in Genesis 17 verse 4, "You will be the father of many nations." This dynamic illustrates how divine promises often encompass more than the immediate, visible fulfillment. Her introduction also invites deeper exploration into her origins. While little is known about her background, some traditions speculate she might have been of Arabian descent, aligning with the geographic regions her descendants would later inhabit. Other theories propose she could be Hagar under a new name, though most modern scholars view her as a distinct individual. Regardless, her presence represents a strategic move in God's divine narrative. Keturah's sons symbolize the extension of the Abrahamic promise beyond the borders of Canaan. Through them, the Abrahamic influence spread to regions that would later become cultural and commercial hubs in the ancient world. This dispersal demonstrates how God's plans transcend human limitations, integrating diverse peoples and cultures into His divine purposes. Her story also speaks to the inclusivity of God's covenant. While Isaac inherited the spiritual promises, Keturah's sons received material and territorial blessings. This division highlights the multifaceted nature of God's plans, where every lineage has a unique role to play. It reminds us that no one is excluded from contributing to the larger narrative of faith. Keturah's introduction may be brief, but its impact resonates through history and scripture. Her role in Abraham's life was not a mere afterthought but a continuation of God's promise. As we unpack the legacies of her descendants, her significance becomes even more apparent, revealing the depth and breadth of God's divine plan. The 6 sons of Keturah, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua, each represent a cornerstone in the expansion of Abraham's lineage. Their lives and legacies reflect the fulfillment of the divine promise that Abraham would father many nations. These sons were not merely names in a genealogy, they were foundational to the development of civilizations, trade, and cultural exchange. Zimran, the eldest, is often associated with regions in Arabia. His descendants likely became influential in trade, particularly in spices and incense. This aligns with the symbolic meaning of Keturah's name, suggesting a connection between her lineage and the flourishing trade routes of the ancient world. Zimran's role emphasizes how the sons of Keturah established economic and cultural networks that would persist for centuries. Jokshan fathered 2 notable sons, Sheba and Dedan. Sheba, associated with modern-day Yemen, became a center of wealth and trade, famed for its spices and gold. The Queen of Sheba, who visited Solomon, is believed to descend from this lineage. Dedan's descendants established trade centers in northwest Arabia, contributing significantly to commerce and cultural exchanges. These legacies underline the geopolitical importance of Keturah's lineage. Medan and Midian, the next sons, played critical roles in shaping the Arabian Peninsula's historical and cultural identity. Midian, in particular, is well documented in biblical narratives. His descendants, the Midianites, interacted frequently with the Israelites, sometimes as allies and other times as adversaries. Figures like Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, demonstrate the continued influence of this lineage. Ishbak and Shua, though less prominent in biblical accounts, contributed to the broader dispersion of Keturah's descendants. Shua's lineage is believed to have connections to northern Mesopotamia, where trade and intellectual exchange flourished. These lineages emphasize the global reach of Abraham's legacy, extending beyond the immediate boundaries of Canaan. Each son carried forward aspects of the Abrahamic blessing, spreading influence across vast regions. Their lineages became integral to the development of ancient civilizations, linking the Fertile Crescent to the Arabian Peninsula. This dispersal highlights the interconnectedness of Keturah's story with global history. The legacy of Keturah's sons serves as a testament to the multifaceted nature of God's promises. While Isaac carried the spiritual covenant, her sons ensured the physical and cultural expansion of Abraham's lineage. This balance reflects God's ability to fulfill his plans through diverse means and peoples. The stories of Keturah's sons remind us that every lineage plays a role in God's grand narrative. Their contributions to history, trade, and culture echo the divine promise of Abraham's influence, which continues to shape the world today. Keturah's descendants were instrumental in establishing and sustaining some of the most important trade routes of the ancient world. These routes connected regions, cultures, and economies, creating a network that would influence civilizations for millennia. The spice and incense trades, in particular, became hallmarks of her lineage's contribution to global commerce. The Arabian Peninsula, where many of her descendants settled, was strategically located at the crossroads of Asia, Africa, and Europe. This positioning allowed them to control key trade routes, including the incense road, which transported valuable goods like frankincense, myrrh, and spices. These commodities were highly sought after in ancient markets, linking Keturah's lineage to wealth and influence. The Midianites, descended from Midian, played a prominent role in these trade networks. Biblical accounts describe them as skilled merchants and traders, often traveling in caravans laden with goods. The story of Joseph being sold by his brothers to Midianite traders, Genesis 37 verse 28, underscores their significance in regional commerce and their connections to major economic centers. Sheba and Dedan, descendants of Jokshan, became synonymous with prosperity and trade. Sheba's wealth and cultural prominence are immortalized in the account of the Queen of Sheba visiting Solomon with gifts of gold, spices, and precious stones. Dedan's role as a commercial hub is referenced in Ezekiel, highlighting its importance in the ancient world. Keturah's descendants not only facilitated trade but also fostered cultural and intellectual exchange. As goods moved along their routes, so did ideas, technologies, and traditions. This dynamic interaction enriched the regions they inhabited, creating a legacy that transcended economic impact. The integration of her lineage into these trade networks demonstrates the divine foresight in spreading Abraham's influence. While Isaac's lineage carried the spiritual covenant, Keturah's sons ensured that the Abrahamic promise reached far-flung regions through commerce and cultural interaction. Their contributions to trade underscore the importance of economic and cultural systems in fulfilling divine purposes. By controlling key routes and resources, Keturah's descendants positioned themselves as integral players in the development of ancient societies. Their story reminds us that divine plans often unfold through practical means, such as commerce and collaboration. The role of Keturah's descendants in trade and commerce is a testament to the interconnectedness of God's promises. Their influence in shaping ancient economies and cultures reflects the enduring reach of Abraham's legacy, which continues to resonate in modern geopolitics and global systems. Keturah's legacy extends far beyond her immediate family, influencing the geopolitical landscape of the ancient world. The regions settled by her descendants became strategic centers of power, trade, and culture, shaping the course of history in profound ways. From the Arabian Peninsula to Mesopotamia, the impact of her lineage is evident in the territorial and political dynamics of the time. The Midianites, one of the most prominent groups among Keturah's descendants, occupied territories stretching from the Gulf of Aqaba to the plains of Moab. Their strategic location allowed them to control critical trade routes and engage in both alliances and conflicts with neighboring nations. This dual role as traders and warriors made them significant players in the region's geopolitics. The descendants of Sheba and Dedan, linked to the southern Arabian Peninsula, also wielded considerable influence. Sheba, in particular, became a center of wealth and culture, known for its advanced trade networks and prosperity. The Queen of Sheba's visit to Solomon underscores the region's geopolitical importance and its connections to broader international relations. Keturah's lineage intersected with the narratives of other nations, creating a complex web of alliances and rivalries. The Midianites' relationship with the Israelites, for example, shifted over time, ranging from collaboration, as seen with Jethro and Moses, to conflict, as seen during the time of Gideon. These interactions highlight the enduring relevance of her descendants in shaping regional dynamics. The influence of Keturah's descendants extended to cultural and religious spheres as well. Their interactions with neighboring peoples facilitated the exchange of ideas and traditions, contributing to the development of shared cultural and spiritual identities. This blending of influences enriched the regions they inhabited and reinforced their geopolitical significance. The territories occupied by Keturah's lineage often correspond to areas of continued importance in modern geopolitics. The trade routes and resources that once defined their influence remain central to global economies and political strategies today. This continuity underscores the enduring legacy of Keturah's story in shaping history and geography. Keturah's influence on the geopolitics of the ancient world demonstrates the far-reaching impact of Abraham's legacy. Her story reminds us that divine promises are not confined to spiritual blessings but encompass every aspect of human existence, including politics, trade, and cultural development. The geopolitical role of Keturah's descendants is a testament to the depth and breadth of God's plans. It highlights how individual lives, even those seemingly peripheral to the main narrative, can shape the course of history in profound and lasting ways. Pause for a moment and reflect. What legacy are you building today? Just as Keturah and Abraham were part of God's grand plan, you too are called to play a unique role in His story. If you feel inspired to walk closer with God and discover the purpose He has for your life, take the first step. Subscribe now, not just to this channel, but to the journey of following Jesus, where your faith can grow, your path can be guided, and your life can become part of His eternal legacy. Keturah's legacy is not solely defined by the geopolitical or economic impact of her descendants, it carries profound spiritual significance. Her story is a testament to the breadth and inclusivity of God's promises, revealing how His blessings extend beyond the immediate lineage of Isaac to encompass other branches of Abraham's family. This aspect of her legacy invites us to reflect on the universality of God's plan. One of the key spiritual themes evident in Keturah's story is the fulfillment of God's promise to make Abraham a father of many nations, Genesis 17 verse 4. While Isaac carried the covenant of spiritual inheritance, Keturah's sons ensured the expansion of Abraham's influence across diverse lands and peoples. This highlights how God's blessings often ripple outward, touching lives beyond the central narrative. The descendants of Keturah played pivotal roles in preserving and spreading aspects of the Abrahamic faith. Figures such as Jethro, Moses' Midianite father-in-law, demonstrate this influence. Jethro's recognition of the God of Israel and his wise counsel to Moses in Exodus 18 show how Keturah's lineage contributed to the spiritual and organizational development of God's chosen people. Keturah's story also illustrates God's capacity to work through unexpected individuals and circumstances. Her introduction into Abraham's life occurred during his later years, yet the influence of her descendants spans generations. This teaches us that no stage of life is too late for God to accomplish His purposes through us. The inclusion of Keturah's lineage in the broader biblical narrative emphasizes the theme of divine generosity. Even as Isaac carried the primary spiritual covenant, Keturah's sons received material blessings and opportunities to establish their own nations. This dual fulfillment reflects God's abundant grace, which flows through both spiritual and practical avenues. Keturah's legacy challenges us to consider our role in God's unfolding plan. Just as her descendants carried forward the Abrahamic influence, we too are called to contribute to the spread of God's truth and love in our own spheres of influence. Her story inspires us to trust in God's ability to use every life for His divine purposes. Ultimately, the spiritual legacy of Keturah's descendants is a reminder of God's faithfulness and inclusivity. It shows us that His plans transcend human limitations, reaching across cultures, nations, and generations. Her story calls us to embrace the expansiveness of God's vision and to participate actively in His work. The descendants of Keturah left an indelible mark on the cultural fabric of the ancient world. Through their contributions to trade, governance, and intellectual exchange, they became integral to the development of civilizations that influenced not only their own regions but also the broader ancient world. Their cultural impact is a testament to the far-reaching influence of Abraham's lineage. One of the most significant cultural contributions of Keturah's descendants was their role in fostering trade and commerce. As they settled in regions such as Arabia, Mesopotamia, and beyond, they became key players in the exchange of goods, ideas, and traditions. The trade routes they established facilitated the spread of knowledge, connecting distant civilizations and enriching cultural interactions. The Midianites, in particular, are noted for their cultural contributions. Their interactions with the Israelites, as seen in the story of Jethro and Moses, reflect a mutual exchange of spiritual and practical wisdom. Jethro's advice to Moses on organizing Israel's judicial system, Exodus 18, is an example of how cultural collaboration can shape governance and societal structure. The legacy of Sheba, another of Keturah's lineages, is immortalized in the account of the Queen of Sheba's visit to King Solomon. Her journey to Jerusalem, laden with gifts of gold, spices, and precious stones, symbolizes the exchange of wealth and wisdom between cultures. This interaction highlights the role of Keturah's descendants in bridging gaps between diverse peoples. Keturah's descendants also contributed to the preservation of ancient traditions and knowledge. Their strategic positions along trade routes enabled them to act as custodians of intellectual and cultural heritage. The cities and settlements they established became centers of learning, where ideas from various regions were collected and disseminated. The blending of cultural influences through Keturah's lineage underscores the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. Their contributions to art, literature, and religion enriched the societies they inhabited, creating a lasting legacy that continues to inspire modern scholarship. The cultural impact of Keturah's descendants is a reminder of the enduring power of influence. Their ability to shape civilizations through trade, governance, and cultural exchange reflects the broader divine purpose at work in Abraham's lineage. It calls us to consider how we, too, can leave a positive mark on the world through our actions and interactions. Ultimately, the cultural contributions of Keturah's descendants reveal the depth of God's promises. They demonstrate how His blessings extend beyond immediate contexts, creating ripples that transform societies and endure through generations. This legacy invites us to embrace our role in the ongoing narrative of faith and influence. The story of Keturah and her descendants provides profound lessons on leadership and legacy. It teaches us how to steward influence, embrace divine purpose, and build a lasting impact that transcends time. Through the actions and achievements of her lineage, we gain insights into the qualities that define effective leadership and enduring legacy. One of the central lessons from Keturah's story is the importance of resilience in leadership. Abraham's decision to marry Keturah and father additional children after Sarah's death demonstrates his unwavering commitment to God's promises. This resilience allowed him to expand his influence and fulfill the covenant to be a father of many nations. The strategic positioning of Keturah's descendants along trade routes reflects the role of foresight and planning in leadership. By establishing settlements in key regions, they ensured the economic and cultural prosperity of their lineages. This proactive approach serves as a model for leaders seeking to create sustainable systems of influence. The interactions between Keturah's descendants and other nations highlight the importance of collaboration and diplomacy. Figures like Jethro, who offered wise counsel to Moses, demonstrate how leadership is often strengthened through partnerships and the exchange of ideas. This principle remains relevant in today's interconnected world. Keturah's story also emphasizes the value of inclusivity in leadership. Her descendants were not excluded from the blessings of Abraham's lineage, despite Isaac's role as the primary heir. This inclusivity created opportunities for diverse contributions to the fulfillment of God's promises, showcasing the power of shared influence. The legacy of Keturah's lineage teaches us that leadership is not confined to a single generation. The trade routes, cultural contributions, and governance systems they established continue to impact societies long after their lifetimes. This enduring influence underscores the importance of thinking beyond immediate results and focusing on long-term impact. The example of Keturah's descendants reminds us that true leadership is rooted in purpose and service. Their ability to shape history was not solely due to their strategic decisions but also their alignment with God's overarching plan. This alignment gave their actions lasting significance and ensured the fulfillment of divine promises. Ultimately, the lessons on leadership and legacy from Keturah's story inspire us to lead with vision, resilience, and inclusivity. They call us to embrace our role in God's plan, knowing that our actions can create ripples of influence that extend far beyond our immediate context. The influence of Keturah's lineage is not confined to the ancient world, it continues to shape modern geopolitics and culture. The regions historically associated with her descendants remain vital to global trade, politics, and cultural identity. This continuity highlights the enduring impact of her story on the present day. The Arabian Peninsula, where many of her descendants settled, remains a hub of economic and geopolitical activity. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Yemen, linked to the ancient lineages of Sheba and Dedan, play crucial roles in global trade and energy markets. The strategic importance of these regions echoes the influence of Keturah's descendants in ancient trade networks. The cultural traditions preserved by Keturah's lineage also contribute to modern identities in the Middle East. The values of hospitality, resilience, and interconnectedness, often attributed to these ancient tribes, continue to shape the cultural fabric of the region. These traditions serve as a bridge between past and present, connecting contemporary societies to their historical roots. The trade routes established by Keturah's descendants have evolved into modern economic corridors. Projects like China's Belt and Road Initiative mirror the ancient networks that facilitated the exchange of goods and ideas. This continuity underscores the strategic foresight of Keturah's lineage and their role in shaping global commerce. The geopolitical significance of the Red Sea and Arabian Peninsula, historically associated with the descendants of Keturah, remains relevant today. These regions are central to modern conflicts, alliances, and economic strategies, reflecting their enduring importance in global affairs. The legacy of Keturah's story provides valuable context for understanding these dynamics. Keturah's influence on modern geopolitics is a testament to the interconnectedness of history. Her story reminds us that the actions and decisions of ancient times continue to ripple through the centuries, shaping the world we inhabit today. It calls us to consider the long-term impact of our own actions and decisions. The cultural and geopolitical relevance of Keturah's descendants demonstrates the enduring power of legacy. Their contributions to trade, governance, and cultural exchange have left an indelible mark on history, influencing not only their own time but also the modern world. Ultimately, Keturah's role in modern geopolitics and culture highlights the timelessness of God's promises. It reveals how His plans transcend generations, creating connections between ancient stories and contemporary realities. Her legacy calls us to recognize the divine hand at work in shaping history and to participate actively in the unfolding narrative. Keturah's story is far more than a historical footnote, it is a narrative of eternal relevance. Her life and lineage reveal profound truths about God's character, His plans, and His ability to use every individual for His purposes. As we reflect on her legacy, we are reminded of the timeless lessons her story holds for faith, leadership, and human history. One of the key takeaways from Keturah's story is the inclusivity of God's promises. While Isaac was the primary heir, Keturah's sons were not excluded from God's blessings. This inclusivity reflects the abundance of God's grace and His desire to work through diverse peoples and cultures to fulfill His plans. Her story also demonstrates the importance of resilience and faith. Abraham's decision to marry Keturah and father more children late in life shows his unwavering trust in God's purposes. It reminds us that no matter our circumstances, we can remain open to new opportunities to serve and fulfill our divine calling. The enduring impact of Keturah's lineage highlights the power of legacy. Her descendants shaped trade, culture, and geopolitics, leaving a mark that continues to influence the world today. This teaches us that our actions and decisions, no matter how small they seem, can have far-reaching effects. Keturah's story calls us to reflect on our own role in God's plan. Just as her life became part of a greater narrative, we too are invited to participate in the unfolding story of God's kingdom. Her legacy inspires us to embrace our purpose with faith and determination, trusting in God's ability to work through us. The relevance of Keturah's story is also seen in its connection to modern realities. The regions and cultures influenced by her descendants remain central to global affairs, demonstrating the continuity of God's plans throughout history. Her story reminds us that history is not random but guided by divine purpose. As we conclude this exploration of Keturah's story, we are invited to see her as more than a historical figure. She is a symbol of God's faithfulness, His inclusivity, and His ability to use every life for His glory. Her legacy challenges us to consider how we, too, can contribute to the greater narrative of faith and purpose. Ultimately, Keturah's story is a reminder that God's promises are eternal. They transcend time, culture, and human limitations, reaching across generations to accomplish His divine will. Her life calls us to trust in God's plan, embrace our role in His story, and leave a legacy that reflects His glory. As we conclude this journey through the remarkable story of Keturah, her life reminds us that God's plans often unfold through unexpected people and circumstances. She was more than Abraham's wife. She was a vessel for God's promises, a bridge to nations, and a symbol of how the divine purpose transcends time and space. Her story teaches us that everyone has a role in God's grand narrative, and through faith, we too can become part of something far greater than ourselves. Keturah's descendants carried forth Abraham's legacy, shaping trade routes, building nations, and contributing to the cultural and spiritual history of the Middle East and beyond. Their influence echoes into our modern world, reminding us of the interconnectedness of God's plan. Her story calls each of us to reflect on our own legacy and challenges us to embrace the divine purpose for our lives with faith, resilience, and trust. Now, I want to ask you, what legacy will you leave behind? Just as Keturah's story is woven into the fabric of history, your life can also become a testimony of God's faithfulness. If you feel a calling to deepen your faith and become part of God's plan, now is the time to act. Take the step of faith and commit yourself to the journey of following Jesus. He has a plan for you, a purpose that will transform your life and bless those around you. Before we close, let me encourage you to stay connected. Subscribe to this channel and join our community as we explore more stories of faith, purpose, and divine legacy. Here, we're not just sharing knowledge, we're walking this journey together, growing in faith and understanding every step of the way. And remember, this isn't just about learning, it's about transformation. My name is Josue, and it has been an honor to share this powerful story with you today. I don't take for granted the time we've spent together, and I hope this message has touched your heart as much as it has inspired me. You are part of this story too, and I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you for joining me, and as we part ways today, I want you to know that you're not alone on this journey. God's plans for you are bigger than you can imagine, and I'm here to walk alongside you as we discover them together. Until next time, may your faith grow stronger, your path shine brighter, and your legacy reflect the greatness of God's promises. See you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, follow Jesus, and keep moving forward in faith. God bless you, my friend.